So the House passed a bill that you must show valid ID to vote, something that 80% of Americans support. Only 4 Democrats in the House voted for that bill. All Republicans voted for it just earlier today.
No one wants non-citizens voting, says a top Democratic senator, but why is this even a debate? With rising concerns about election integrity, a surprising voice from the left is making headlines. Is this a bipartisan issue after all, or just political strategy in disguise? Let's break it down. I am Mia from the US Post, and if you are new to our channel, please subscribe it and support us. Let's dive into the discussion, and do not forget to share your views in the comments box.
On that and other topics, let's bring in Democratic Senator Elizabeth Slotkin of Michigan. She voted against that bill when she was in the House. She is a former CIA analyst. She served in Iraq, and this is her first time joining us as a senator since she won her election back in November, big election that she won in Michigan. Senator, good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start there. Would you vote in favor of that bill that voters have to show ID in order to vote at the federal level?
Yeah, no, I didn't vote on it in the House, and if it comes to the Senate, I won't vote on it for the simple reason that it requires, again, a specific list of ID that you can use at the voting booth. Your driver's license is not good enough. You either have to use your birth certificate or your passport. Well, 60% of Michiganders don't have a passport. And for 80% of women in this country who are married, they've changed their name from their birth certificate. So it makes it harder to have women vote, makes it harder if you don't have a passport. I'm all for keeping non-citizens from voting in our elections.
Why not just amend the bill to make sure that you can use your license and then, vote, say you'll vote. Would you vote yes for that?
Well, for sure. If there was a way to make it,
it doesn't seem like it should be that complicated to show your license to vote.
We tried. We tried. When we voted on it in the House, we said, hey, man, just change it, amend it. We're willing to work with you. We don't want non-citizens voting, and there's penalties against that, including never becoming a citizen.
And that's because some states allow people who are here not legally to have a driver's license, so they want some form of backup. But do you believe that do you have a problem with people having to show ID to prove that they're valid American citizens to vote in this country?
No, and we already have that. I mean, in the state of Michigan, you have to be a citizen just to be able to vote and get on the voter rolls, period. And we had 5.5 million people vote in our last election. So, I have no problem. No one wants a non-citizen voting. It happens in very, very rare instances. But then just make the bill workable. But if 80% of women who are married change their names, their birth certificate's just not going to match. It just doesn't make sense.
It's not that hard to. I mean, I changed stuff when I got married. It's not that hard to do that. But anyway, I want to ask you about the bill that you put forward, which is to prevent Chinese vehicles from entering the United States. Now, obviously, a lot of cars with American names on them, Buick, Lincoln. A lot of those cars are made in China, and then they come over here and have an American label on them. How would this work?
Yeah. So the most important thing is that the Chinese vehicles that are out there, there's a big company called BYD. They are, most of the time made in China. But what's really important is who is getting the data that those cars are collecting. 3D mapping, LiDAR, geolocation of specific people, all that data, rafts of data is going back to Beijing for them to use as they see fit. That's what we're trying to ban, not just the vehicle itself, but the parts that control the data and send it back to another country. Again, as long as the data is controlled by Americans, on Americans, that's a different conversation, right? That's what our American car companies do. They have very sophisticated cars that we make in Detroit that collect data as well. But the control of the data is here, not going back to China.
I know BYD is a huge company, but I've never seen one of their cars on the road here. I think we have very, very few of them here. But certainly your concern about, it's like a TikTok concern of grabbing data in just another way from these cars if they were to be here. But what would you tell Lincoln and Buick, for example? You want them to not have any of their components come from China. You'd want to lock that down.
I say if you have components that are allowing the Chinese government access to American and America data, we have a problem. Yes, we have a problem. And I would just say BYD is not on our roads now. That's why we're doing this bill. But they're trying to buy car factories in Mexico, and they've become the fastest growing car in Europe because they are like a $10,000 looking Tesla. They're a very cheap looking Tesla. They're subsidized by the Chinese government. So the point is, before what happened in Europe happens in the United States, I want to give the ability by law to block Chinese vehicles, Chinese technology that sends data back to Beijing.
Do you think, are you in favor of decoupling from China, the U.S. economy completely?
Oh, I think we learned during COVID that we were very overly reliant on China. I think that was a huge problem, not just in, buying a couch or a phone or something, but also even some of our military equipment we realized had origins in China. We just have to make sure that we understand certain items should always be made in the United States, particularly if there's national security implications. So I think we all learned chickens came home to roost during COVID.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. Thank you.